welcome to this week's piece. So this is a beautiful little dresser cabinet combo with a serpentine front. It's definitely antique. It's been in my husband's family for ages and ages, so I'm not redoing this piece to sell, but we're doing it for us. The top has to be redone, this drawer, that drawer. This video is going to have a lot of repairs, and I really love repairs on solid wood pieces like this. I think they're actually fun to do, and I really love watching them. So I hope this is something that you guys will be interested in as well. Yeah, that drawer also will have to get fixed. It jolts down as soon as you pull it out. The cabinets are actually perfect. There's nothing that I need to do with those. So thankfully there's one spot on this that doesn't need to be fixed. But yeah, that's the overall piece, and it's lovely. We're going to get into the work right now. It's going to have an amazing finish in the end, so that's good. Obviously, I'm starting out by removing the back plate. I always have my little cup that I put in the screws and hardware and everything from whatever piece I'm working on so that nothing gets lost. And since we're going to have to redo this entire top, as you can see, they're not fully glued together anymore, and the parts that were are going to break up. Each board separately has its own cupping going on, so I'm trying to, as gently as possible, remove the top. It's been nailed down by a ton of very large nails, so I'm just kind of going around and prying them all up. Now, since all of these boards are going to have to come apart, I am taping each of them so that I remember which one goes where. It's just easier for later, so I'm not trying to fit them together like a puzzle. And then you do have to make sure that your joints are fully clean before you can re-glue everything back together. And as I'm doing this, I'm realizing I'm going to have to take this back to my father-in-law's shop and break out the big guns and send this thing through the joiner because, like I said, all the boards were cupped, so it's going to require just a little more advanced woodworking than what I can do in my little shop. So I'm going to take it to my father-in-law's shop. He has all kinds of fun stuff over there. This thing had so many nails in it, and I think that's what actually caused the issues with the top so much, is because at one point it got wet and the nails didn't allow for expansion and contraction, and it just kind of let the glue lines bust. So this drawer is actually an easy fix, so all I'm doing is sliding it back into place, and I'll just throw a nail in the back and it will be perfect. That's typically how it was done. No need to glue these. You just throw a little nail in the back and it holds it right into place. It always feels like cheating using a power tool on this. I should have just used a hammer. But you guys know I just got my airstrike recently, so I'm very excited about using it. And then I've only got one drawer stop on the left side of this one and none on the right. So I'm just grabbing a couple pieces of scrap wood, testing size, and this one's actually going to be perfect, so I'm going to clean out this little groove here. And then I was just checking to see how deep I needed to make the cut. Use my pole saw. Cut a few of those and then just throw them on there. Now all of those drawer stops are in. Now I can start working on this drawer. So you can see it just kind of pops down as soon as you have it out and wants to go back up. It's because it's been run through so many times that it's actually carved out kind of a U shape in the wood. So to fix this is really easy. You just want to take a strip of thin wood that's kind of the thickness that you need and measure it out, and then you can actually glue it on there. And it just kind of replaces the wood that's gone missing. So first I'm measuring the back, but as you could see, it was bowed up, so I'm just going to kind of draw a line to where it needs to be sanded down to match that curve there. I'm just making sure that the length fits, and then I'll go ahead and sand it too. And so that's just a little bit proud of the drawer front, so it's going to need just a little bit more sanding to bring it down to the right level. So that's perfect. It fits right on there. It sits flush at the front, so it won't stick on anything. And I'll just glue that, clamp it, and then that's going to happen to the other side as well. When you're gluing, you want to make sure that you have glue on both surfaces and that you have it fully covered so that you don't have any misses or skips. You want this to be a really tight seal because it's going to have a lot of use. So those were gluing up. I could take my pieces over to my father-in-law's shop, and we're kind of deciding on how much needs to come off. You could kind of hear the skips in it when it's going through. Anytime your joiner is skipping, it means that you don't have a flat surface, so you have to keep pushing it through until it makes the sound the whole way through, which is what you want. That was me being excited that we finally got a flat surface. So now I can glue these back up. Again, this top isn't going to be perfect because every board was bowed, and I didn't want to send it through the planer because it'll just take away the patina and the age, and it doesn't bother me that it's not going to be exactly perfect, but it is going to be fully glued together and just a better finish overall. So I did clamp it in 2 different sections, and then I finished by clamping all of them together. So there's just 2 there. On another table I have the other 2, and then I do all 4. And now I'm just sanding over the glue lines, making sure that that's all gone. I was going to use oxalic acid on the top, but with the finish that we're using, it isn't going to matter. So since these drawer glides are just raw pieces of wood that I put on there, I'm actually using an old candlestick because it's a really hard wax and putting it on instead of my softer wax that I typically use on regular drawer glides. And now that just slides in beautifully, and it doesn't do that big drop down that it was doing before. And these drawers fully stop now, which is great. I know it seems like I'm going back and forth, but it's because this was the next day. So I love these old pieces of hardware with the square bolts. I just think it's so fun. Now I'm using my chalk fountain cleaner, and I'm just going to go over this entire piece just to clean it up. If you were going to paint something like this, I would say that it would be a bleeder just because of how old it is, and people used furniture wax and all kinds of different stuff on them. So you would definitely want to seal this if you wanted to paint something of this vintage. I'm not worried about that because we're not going to be painting. We're going to be working with the piece itself. It's just too pretty to cover up. But this does have a very rough texture. I'm pretty sure the finish has been gone for many years. So I'm just trying to smooth it out a little bit with just a sanding block. It's about a 220, I would say. And then we are going to do a wash blend. So the top is going to be white all the way down to black. So I've got my mellow white, light gray, iron gate, and blackboard all in Chalk Mountain. And some of my containers, like that blackboard one, I keep as a black wash. So that's not just paint, I keep that container as my black wash. And then the same with the iron gate. And then I'll have to mix up some new for the light gray and the mellow white, because I don't already have those. So I'm just applying the white first. I'm going top to bottom because washes tend to drip, and it's just safer this way. So I'm using chip brushes for this. Doesn't really matter. We're not going to have brush strokes because everything gets wiped back. I am working in very small sections. If your space isn't as warm as mine is, you can work in a little bit larger sections, but you usually just want to go in small sections because if the paint dries while you're still working it, it's hard to get that out. I just make sure it stays wet the whole time. I use my mister bottle if I have to, and then I go back and just wipe back the paint. It left a mark there, so I just added a little more water and then wiped it back with the rag again, and it took it right off. So the top drawers were white. The second drawer is going to be the light gray. So that's what color I'm going in with here. And it's the same process the whole way, except for now you can see I'm kind of using my rag to bring the gray up into the white. And the white's not quite as bright as it's going to be in the end, and I'm going to show you a few tricks how to lighten that up as you go as well. But for now, we're just getting our base coat on. I try to run with the grain of the wood when I'm wiping everything back. So over the drawer, it's horizontal, but then when I hit the sides, it's vertical. And then the tops of these doors are going to be done in iron gates. So I'm just pulling the light gray down a little bit first, and then I'm going in with the iron gate. I do have a separate brush for each color. And then as you can see, I'm also working the iron gate up a little into the light gray on the sides. Now the details you want to be a little more careful with, just because you're working with such a watery paint. They can pool in certain areas, so you have to watch for that. Watch for drips later, because a lot of times they won't show up right away, and you'll go back and look and you're like, oh great, I had something dripping down my piece that wasn't there. So you do want to keep an eye out when you're working over details. And the black is just on the bottom, so I'm doing the legs and then the very front skirt piece, and then I'm kind of blending it up on the sides, just because I like that framed out look. And you're going to want a few different rags. When you're working with your dark colors, you'll want to use a rag specifically for those, and then for your light colors, you'll want a rag for those. So I do actually use the rags to help blend the paint, because once they get saturated with color, they work really nicely to add more color to areas that didn't have enough, and just to kind of blend the colors back and forth. And then you're kind of just working with everything as it goes. You do want to be very gentle with everything during this process, because it is just a wash, and if you are reactivating the paint, you can actually pull off the previous layer if it isn't fully dried, or if you're just being a little too rough with it. So you'll get the feel for your paint, whatever paint you're using, and kind of figure out what you need to do. But as you can see there, I am actually using the rag to blend those colors together. Then I'm going to add a second wash on the top two drawers. They will be the lightest on the front piece, so I wanted to just make sure they were a little bit lighter. So they're getting a second coat. And then the top, we're going to make even lighter. The very top and then the backboard. I just haven't put those on yet. But they got 2 coats of wash as well, and then we're going to lighten them up some more as we go. And then of course I'm going to be taking my sanding block again, because we are using a wash especially. It's going to raise the grain because you're just adding moisture to the wood. So I'm just lightly kind of brushing it across, nothing too crazy, just smoothing out the wood a little bit before we poly. And then I'm just going in with my Chalk Mountain Satin Poly. No tints or anything this time, nothing crazy. I'm just going to go over and do the entire piece. Just like getting it on there, and then once it's on, I'll do long, smooth strokes. And then I'm going to do 2 coats over the entire piece. So I'm just going through and attaching all the hardware back on the drawer fronts and the doors. And then any high traffic surface that requires multiple coats of poly, say like the top of a dresser, I actually go over with wax and add an extra layer of durability that way. And in this case, since I wanted the top to be even lighter than the drawers, I used white wax. So this brightened it up quite a bit, which gave me more of the from super light to the dark of the black. Now I'm just refreshing the drawers with my hemp wax, and these really, really needed it. They were so dry. So I just apply that with a brush, and then I'll just go back with a cloth to clean out any excess. Oh hi, Taryn here, and I just am so excited about this week's piece. It is beautiful, perfect, I love it so much. It is a very, very old piece that has been in my husband's family for a very long time. They actually don't know where they got it from. His grandmother had it in her home, and she's gone now, and kind of nobody knows how it got there or anything. But I wanted to keep it Lucas. His older siblings were using it for a while, and then he was using it for a while, and it just has kind of gone through everyone. And so now I'm not sure where it's going to go in the house, but it's going to be in there. So here's the finish. It's very neutral. It will go with anything. So I haven't added anything to the sides. Usually I'll do like a print or something along the sides, and then also on the insides of the cabinet in these frames here. But since I don't know where it's going yet, I haven't done that. That will be a project for a later time. It'll probably go into stories or something like that. So it's not going to be on this piece. But for right now, it's finished and beautiful and sealed and just a lovely, lovely blend of washes. So you can still see the quarter sawn oak. You can still see all of the grain patterns, and it still has kind of my flair, and it will fit into our home and all that, but still keeping it with its natural. And then it's extra protected on top. Like I said, we did the several coats of poly and then also wax, which I always do to any surface that is going to take a beating. I make sure that I do my multiple coats of poly and then also wax over the top of it, because wax is much more water resistant than poly is. Anyways, just want to say thanks for watching. Thank you guys so much for all the likes, the shares, the comments, everything. I love how my channel is growing. I'm just so, so, so thankful for you. I couldn't be just more, I have no words. Okay, anyways, now on to some photos.